Hello guys, and welcome back to another one. It's been a while. I've been busy. I've been doing stuff like hockey and school, but I've got a little bit of a break here, and I decided I'm gonna try to get caught up on all the stuff that I've missed, including this video right here, which actually is going to be I'm gonna be picking my best rookie off of every single team in the NHL, and some of them are pretty underwhelming because teams such as like Pittsburgh and Seattle have like absolutely nobody. So it was pretty difficult to pick one there. Or like it wasn't difficult, but it was like just like there's obvious differences between teams. But you'll see that was probably a pretty easy thing to figure out. But before I get started, I should probably explain the 3 rules I had for defining what a rookie is, alright? Rule 1. They can win the Calder. They don't have to follow all 3. They have to be in at least one of these categories. They can win the Calder. They're 20 or under the age of 20. And they can be any age as long as it's their first season in the NHL. Those are the 3 rules I went by. But now that I've explained that, I'm going to be doing this in alphabetical order. So let's get started off with Anaheim. And from Anaheim, which is actually a pretty easy one for me, I ended up going with, let's be honest, it was like really easy, Trevor Zegras. Trevor Zegras is 20 years old. He's a centerman. In 41 games, he has 12 goals, 20 assists for 32 points. And these 32 points don't just come like any 32 points. He's so fancy. He's like has that superstar qualities. He does so many things that no other players can do. He just scored a Michigan not long ago, which was actually pretty insane. But he's been very good, and he has lived up to my expectations. And he was the obvious one because I think he's probably the Calder favorite right now, at least in my opinion. So Trevor Zegras, a very obvious one. From Arizona, I went with goaltender Kirill Vejmelka. He is 25 years old. He's a goaltender, and in 25 games, he has put up a .902 save percentage. But this .902 save percentage has not been a consistent thing because actually throughout the season, he has been so streaky. Like 1 week you'll get like this amazing goaltender who saves everything, like shutouts, .960 save percentages, amazing. And then the next week you'll get a goalie who puts up like 870s, lets in every goal, maybe even like gets pulled because he lets in like 4 goals on 5 shots. Like so inconsistent this guy is. But overall, Arizona being as bad of a team as it is, there wasn't like a ton of options. And Vejmelka honestly hasn't been that bad. He's actually been pretty good considering he's on the worst team in the league. So that's who I went for them. For Boston, I actually went with somebody who's not even in the league right now, which is pretty interesting. I went with another goaltender, Jeremy Swayman, who is 23 years old right now. In 16 games, he's put up a .918 save percentage. And when he's playing in the NHL, he's been very solid. But he actually got sent down to the minors because Boston signed Tuukka Rask. So he got sent down, which I thought was hilarious because right now, a goaltending issue that didn't exist in Boston now does. And Tuukka Rask hasn't been very good in his time there, which is pretty funny. So their goalie, who's actually doing good, they're like, you know what, we're going to send him down and we're going to bring up this old guy. And honestly, no offense, Tuukka Rask is good, but I just think it's funny that they didn't have a goaltending problem and they tried to fix a problem that didn't exist and they just made it worse. So that's always pretty interesting. But moving on to Buffalo. Buffalo actually had a few options. Well, maybe not, but who I ended up going with was a 20-year-old centerman, Dylan Cozens. Dylan Cozens, in 41 games, has 10 goals, 10 assists for 20 points. And he's progressed a bit. I don't know how much you wanted him to progress as a Sabres fan. I don't know necessarily what your expectations were for him. Actually, tell me maybe in the comments what they were. But he's a very early pick. I still think he has more offensive potential to give. You like to see those steps forward. Like he's definitely taken one this season from last season. He's been heating up a little bit recently, so hopefully he can keep that going. But yeah, honestly, I don't think he's been bad. I still think there's more for him to give, but we'll see how it goes for his future, maybe next season. Because this season, I don't think he'll break out. But I think next season, if he does break out, will be the season for him. From Calgary, I picked a player who's actually not played a lot. He's only played 9 games this season. He's sort of their backup now, but it's Daniel Vladar. Vladar has put up a .910 save percentage in 9 games and has actually slowed down a bit since the start of the season, but he's still putting up solid numbers, so there's nothing you can really complain about with him. And that trade that they did to get him was still pretty solid. So honestly, Calgary, a team lacking in rookies on their NHL roster, he's been pretty solid for them. Carolina. So from Carolina, I actually decided to go with 19-year-old center Seth Jarvis. Seth Jarvis in 31 games has 8 goals, or 32 games has 8 goals, 10 assists for 18 points. Seth Jarvis, he is like not disappointed me at all. When the draft was actually on in 2020, I actually was rooting for him because I wanted him as an Oilers fan, but he got picked right before us. But we ended up getting Dylan Holloway, so it might have worked out anyway. But that's besides the point. Seth Jarvis, he has been very good for Carolina. He's been very good as of recent as well. I watched the highlights to their game last night, and he looked really good still. Very noticeable. And I think he's going to be a great player someday. From Chicago, I went with Mackenzie and Twissel, who is a right winger who's 22. And Twissel is a bit of a surprise for me. I didn't really have any expectations for him, but then he came in and he had a really good preseason, and he decided to he made the team. He made the team after that amazing preseason. I think he had a good preseason at least. But and he honestly hasn't been bad. In 28 games, he has 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points. He's been solid, and he was like a third round pick not long ago. So you never know. Maybe he could become something more. But honestly, I think he'd be just this good. I don't think that's disappointing at all. But he, for me, is their best rookie. And it's funny because Chicago's not a very good team, and they don't have a lot of good rookies. So that's not a very good thing. It's sort of like the same thing as Vancouver. But yeah. From Colorado, I actually went with defenseman Bowen Byram. Bowen Byram had 18 games, has 5 goals, 6 assists for 11 points. And he hasn't played very much because he's been having head injuries throughout the season. Another player I could have gone with is Alex Newhook, but I decided to just go with Byram because when he's in the lineup, he's just been that good. He's been so good when he's in the lineup. Defensively, offensively, all around. He's a very good defenseman. The only problem he really has is just his head injuries. He needs to, I don't know. It kind of sucks when you see young careers get ruined by that, but we'll see. I think he'll eventually get it together, hopefully, and I don't know. We'll see how it goes for him, but best of luck to Byram with his head injuries. But when he's been in the lineup, he's been fantastic. From Columbus, I've actually went with their draft pick from this season, not long ago at all. He's a centerman, and his Cole Sullinger. Cole Sullinger, in 38 games, has 6 goals, 7 assists for 13 points, and he's slowed down a bit. At the start of the season, he was scoring a lot, and his offense has definitely slowed down. But from what I've heard, he's still fit in and played really solid. He wouldn't be able to tell he's a rookie. That's what I've heard. I don't watch many Columbus games, so don't take my word for that completely. But Cole Sullinger, I'm just wondering, do you think they might be rushing him a little bit? His offense is slowed down. He's putting out some points. Would it better suit him right now to be in the minors, maybe? Maybe it would better suit him to, develop a little bit more in the minors and then call him up. But that's just me. Obviously, I'm not watching these games, so I don't really know. But Cole Sullinger has definitely been their best prospect, as I'm aware. And also, if I've missed anybody or anything like that, just tell me, because I might have messed up on my rules a little bit with the whole Calder thing. There's some dates that I probably didn't look at as closely as I should have. So if I messed up something, just tell me, and I won't be able to fix it because the video's already on. There's no way I'm fixing that, because that's a lot of work, and I'm good. From Dallas, I went with 22-year-old center Jacob Pedersen. Jacob Pedersen, in 34 games, has 8 goals, 2 assists for 10 points. And I think he has more offensive potential than what he's shown us. But as of so far, he's been okay. He's been doing his thing. I want to know what your guys' expectations were for him coming into the season. If you guys expected him to be a top forward, or maybe just what he's doing now. But the 8 goals are impressive. Does not have a lot of assists, but I honestly think there's a little bit more in there to give. I think he could end up being a pretty good. How old is he? I think it could end up being. I mean, he already is, but no. Anyway, I think there's just more in the tank. I think he's got more to give, but I don't think he's been too bad. You might have had higher expectations for him though. From Detroit, a team that had so many options, I could have gone with Seider, Raymond, Nedeljkovic, but I went with none of them actually. Just joking. No, that would have been pretty funny, though. I ended up going with defenseman Moritz Seider, 20 years old. In 45 games, he has 4 goals, 25 assists for 29 points. He's been very solid. But the thing is, as much as those offensive totals are great, the offense isn't the only part of his game. He's amazing defensively. He plays physical. He's good on both sides of the. He's fantastic in all areas of his defensive game. And this is why people saw him as the best defenseman out of the NHL, is because he was just so good, and he brought all of that to the NHL, and he's just excelled even my expectations for him. And I think he's been the best rookie for Detroit, even with Raymond, who's actually slowed down a bit. Still pretty good, but I still think Seider is their best rookie right now. From Edmonton, I'm like, Edmonton's not going to have any good prospects. And it's funny because I'm an Edmonton fan, but I'm like, wait a minute, I forgot about Evan Bouchard, defenseman. He's 22, and 40 games this season. He has 9 goals, 14 assists for 23 points, and he has been very good. His defensive game can be a little bit iffy sometimes, but his offensive game's great, and they're finally giving him more power play time, and he's been using it effectively. He's been getting more points, and I think he needs that more time on the power play because he's got a boosh bomb. He's got an absolute rocket of a shot, and it's used very well in the power play. But Bouchard, I wouldn't say he's excelled my expectations because I thought he was going to be a good defenseman, and he has been a good defenseman. So yeah, no surprises there. But from Florida, another player who probably might not surprise you a crazy amount, Anton Lundell. He's 20th centerman, and I say not surprised like he's not been good, but he has been very good. In 41 games, he has 10 goals, 17 assists for 27 points, and he's very good. He's been very good on both sides of the ice, and from what I've heard, he is like fit in perfectly, like just like what I said about Cole Sullinger. Like you wouldn't be able to tell that this guy's a rookie with the way he's played because he's been great. And the funny thing, this is another player that it wasn't me, but someone else in my family was just he wanted him in the draft. Obviously didn't get him, but no, he's been very good. From LA, LA had a few options, but one prominent one in defenseman, Sean Jersey. Sean Jersey, in 26 games, has 2 goals and 9 assists for 11 points. Forget what I just said. In 27 games, he has 2 goals, 11 assists for 13 points. From watching him a little bit, I can tell you that he's been great. As good as he's been offensively, he's been pretty good defensively, and he's really taken his game up another level from last season to this season. And I don't know exactly how good he can be. I think Toronto gave up on him a little bit early. I'm pretty sure they got Muzzin in that trade, and LA got Jersey back. But yeah, Jersey's looked really good this season, and I'm excited to see what he becomes. From Minnesota, I went with goaltender Kaapo Kähkönen. Now, Kähkönen, I was a little surprised to see that he was actually still a rookie. I thought that he was, I thought that he wasn't anymore. But turns out, I'm pretty sure he is. In 15 games, he's put up a .921, and Kähkönen's definitely having a bounce-back season from last year. Last season was a really good start for him, and he sort of slowed down. And this season, it's been a really good start for him, and he's continued to play good. So unlike last season, he hasn't really slowed down yet. And he's sort of taken he's starting to take that starting position from Talbot, who's had a little bit of a rough time. But the funny thing out of all of this is Cam Talbot's the one who's in the All-Star game. So it's funny when you got a guy who I don't think is even the second best goalie in his division is not even the best goalie on his team right now, and he's going to the All-Star game, so that's pretty funny. But no, Kaapo Kähkönen, he's really bounced back, been proving me wrong. And yeah, and with Kähkönen getting old or coming up, and then you got Jesper Wallstedt, who's a young guy, young stud. Minnesota's goalie future is looking pretty good right now, so you love to see it, especially if you're a Minnesota fan. But moving on to Montreal. It's funny because Minnesota and Montreal are back-to-back. And from Montreal, I actually have a player that they've just claimed from Minnesota. Cole Caulfield has not been great, so he was not their best rookie right now. I went with 24-year-old center Rem Pitlik. Rem Pitlik in 27 games has 8 goals, 8 assists for 16 points in 28 games. That was my bad, not 27. I'm reading a lot of these stats wrong. But he is a great waiver claim off of Montreal. I have no idea why Minnesota put him on waivers. Like, Minnesota fans, if there's something wrong with this game, tell me. But since he's been in Montreal, his offense seems to have just gotten better as well. And I know he had a fast start and slowed down, but still, this guy seems like he could be a pretty good, third-line option for sure. And I don't think that this is just, a one-time, he's playing good right now, but he won't be good. I think, looking at his stats in the minors over the last, year and a half, I think he's legit. I think he's going to be a legit, third-line guy. Maybe even, potential top 6, but probably not top 6. like a good third line guy, I think is what he's going to be. But no, he's been very good for Montreal, and I'm shocked to see that they got him off of waivers. From Nashville, I went with 20-year-old left wing Tanejano. Tanejano is an interesting one. He's definitely a Calder finalist right now, and he is just his offensive totals of in 45 games, he has 13 goals, 13 assists, 26 points. Despite that pretty solid offense, he plays very physical. He plays all around. He's a great forward defensively. He's good at everything. He's like Moritz Seider of offense, sort of. Not really, but he's very physical. I've watched him. It's great to watch, It's great to watch. And despite all this, he wasn't even drafted. He's an undrafted player. He played a few games last year, put up some solid numbers actually in those few games. 7 points in 15, I think. But this year he's been good offensively and he has probably the best well-rounded game out of all the prospects in this list. Moving on to New Jersey. Now this is where, remember I said one of the rules was 20 or under? I didn't expect this, but I probably should have. So there were some players that aren't rookies really, but that still got on this list that aren't technically called their rookies. So there are about 4 teams that have this on this last list, but I'd like to give an honorable mention to Dawson Mercer, who would normally always be on this list. I'll talk about him a little bit just quickly. He's been great. He's slowed down a bit, but still been impressive. Definitely a bit of a surprise. But who have gone with, because I made the rules and I can't abandon from my own rules because I was halfway through the list when I realized this, I went with Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes, in 26 games, has 11 goals, 14 assists for 25 points. He has taken massive steps up. He's played fantastic this year. He's definitely gotten a lot of points on the power play, but you get him how you get him, and he's been very good on everything. He's just been very good. And many people who thought he would be a bust and stuff, and I was one of those guys who didn't actually. I didn't think Hughes would be a bust. I do think that, it's sad to say, but I don't have that same feeling about Lafreniere. I think Lafreniere might be a bust, but this isn't about Lafreniere. Hughes, he's showing the reason that he was drafted first overall in 2017. He's just been fantastic this year. But yeah, sorry about this rule. That's how it works, I guess. Don't worry, there's a couple more players right after this next team that have the exact same thing going on. But for now, we move on to the Islanders. And for the Islanders, I chose 23-year-old left wing Kiefer Bellows. Kiefer Bellows has surprised me a bit this season. I sort of gave up on him, actually. In 20 games, he's only played 20. He has 3 goals, 6 assists for 9 points, so almost 0.5 points per game, which is actually pretty impressive for him. I didn't have any real expectations for him. Like I said, I pretty much gave up on him. But I don't know why he hasn't played a lot. Has he been injured? Let me know. But in the games he has been, it seems like he's been pretty solid. So, yeah, he's my pick for their best rookie right now. From the Rangers. The Rangers, this is another team that the rules got a little bit bent, if you know what I'm saying. But I went with Kaapo Kakko. Kaapo Kakko in 37 games has had 5 goals, 9 assists for 14 points. He shows spurts of that big offensive potential that we all expect him to have. He shows like little pieces of it. And I know that he can be a better player, and I think that he will be a better player. I haven't given up on him yet. But he better show me at least by next season that he has that, because he shows these little like spurts of offensive potential. He's like, oh, I'm good, and then you don't hear about him. He's very quiet. Then you watch, and then he's noticeable again, and it's just I know that it's in him to just reach that potential. But yeah, he has been disappointing overall through his career, but I think he'll get there. I honestly think he'll get there one day. From Ottawa, their best rookie this season, I went with don't worry, this is the last one for a while. That's like a cheating one a little bit. But I went with 20-year-old Tim Stutzel. Stutzel in 37 games has 7 goals, 13 assists for 20 points. He didn't really take a step from last season to this season. His defense is still a little bit iffy, but his offense is still good. And I think that he's going to be a great player as well. He's been good recently. He looks good recently. You can just tell that he has that offensive potential in him. But honestly, when the draft was around, I thought that he was going to go number 2. I still think he should have gone number 2. I wasn't huge on Quinton Byfield, but I do think that next year is his breakout year as an all-star for sure. It has to be next year. He's too good not to. He will, and he's looked really good recently. From Philadelphia, their best prospect. They didn't have money. Again, the same boat is the whole Vancouver Canucks situation. We're not very good, but don't worry because we don't have a big prospect pool. Well, Philadelphia's best rookie this season has been, for me at least, Morgan Frost. Morgan Frost in 25 games has 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points. And he really just hasn't, he just really hasn't been able to bring his minor league production. He hasn't been able to transfer his game from the minors to the NHL, which happens from players from time to time, and sometimes they can never really fully do that. But with Morgan Frost, I want you Philadelphia fans to let me know, are you disappointed with how he's been so far? Is he at least noticeable on the ice? But offensive-wise, he's not putting up any spectacular numbers. He only has 2 goals in 25 games. But, he's still young. He's younger. Next year, you never know. But I think might have been a little bit of a disappointing so far. But again, with Philadelphia, there's not many options for their best rookie. Some of this video is just talking about rookies from certain teams because there's not really a best rookie on a lot of teams. Speaking of not being a best rookie on a lot of teams, let's move over to Pittsburgh. And for Pittsburgh, I chose Drew O'Connor. Now, Drew O'Connor got off to a hot start, if I remember. Over the season, he has, in 22 games, 3 goals, 2 assists for 5 points. He's definitely slowed down a bit throughout the time, and he hasn't been in for a while, and turns out it's because of a collapsed lung, so that's pretty interesting. So I don't know if we'll be seeing him anytime soon, actually, or, yeah, I don't know. But he's been fine. He's been like a solid 4th line guy. But yeah, I don't know. There's not much to say about him really. He's been fine, 4th line guy. Collapsed lung, hasn't played for a while. Pittsburgh doesn't have a lot of rookies, so. But moving on to the Sharks. The Sharks rookie is actually pretty interesting because I went with 24-year-old centerman Jonathan Dahlen. And I'm pretty sure that he was claimed off waivers at the start of the year from Vancouver, which is pretty funny, actually. So, Dahlen, he's been very solid. He got off to a fast start. He slowed down a bit, but he actually I think he scored 2 goals last night, or 2 assists. He had a good night. He's been picking it up a little bit, but in 38 games, he has 11 goals, 8 assists for 19 points. But it's pretty interesting. I'm pretty sure he was claimed off waivers. But yeah, San Jose, that's a great waiver claim by San Jose. And he's really been good for them. Now, moving on to another team that has, no prospects. Now, I think this one was actually the worst of them all. And it was Seattle. So, Seattle, and it makes sense that they don't have any, why do I keep saying prospects? Rookies. It makes sense they don't have any rookies because they're a new team. You could have rookies, or it's the way that they were made as well. The way that this team was built, they don't have any rookies. So, theirs was very difficult, and I might have messed up. So if I did, and there's a better player, then I messed up, and there was nobody. But I had to go with the defenseman who's 25, Will Borgen. 14 games, 1 goal, 1 assist for 2 points. There was no options. He seems like he's that 7th defenseman on a team. His stats are mildly meh, probably a 7th defenseman. But Seattle, nobody. And if there is somebody, please let me know because I struggle to find anyone. But next year, they should have Beniers, so that'll be interesting. From St. Louis, I went with centerman Logan Brown. Logan Brown has only played 17 games, but in those 17 games, he has 3 goals, 3 assists for 6 points. And he had a good start, but he slowed down a bit. But honestly, I think he could end up being a good 3rd-line option for St. Louis. I don't know exactly why he hasn't been in the lineup in a bit. Is he injured? Are they just not playing him? I don't know. But this just shows you that Ottawa definitely, it wasn't a good fit for Logan Brown because he's been playing a lot better during his time in St. Louis. Not amazing, but better. From Tampa Bay, and this is one of those teams where it's interesting. All these good teams, like Pittsburgh with Drew O'Connor and Tampa Bay, and just top of the league teams, they always find guys. They always manage a way to find these rookies, and whether it's ones they drafted in the 3rd or 4th round or picked up in another league, they always come over and they produce. Now with Tampa Bay, for this year for Tampa Bay, it's Taylor Radish, who in 41 games has 4 goals, 6 assists for 10 points. Now those aren't amazing numbers, but they're solid, especially considering he was, I think, a 4th round draft pick not too long ago. I don't exactly know when, but he's been solid, especially you have to think they lost their whole 3rd line over the offseason, And these young kids, they have like a young kid line, and they've been pretty good. And Taylor Radish is one of those guys who's been very solid for Tampa, and he's just come in. And I'm sure next year we'll have another guy from Tampa that comes in, and we don't know who he is, and all of a sudden, bam, he's producing at a pretty decent rate. But Toronto was a easy one, like a really easy one. I went with a 26-year-old left wing, Michael Bunting, and Bunting I thought would be a good player. I was very surprised to see that he was signed for as cheap of a price as he was, so that's a very good move by Kyle Dubas. But in 40 games, he has 12 goals, 15 assists for 27 points. He just got his second career hat trick last night. And he's actually been playing on like the top line with Matthews and whoever else, but he's been like very good offensively, and I knew that he'd be able to carry it over. Because right now he's one of the contenders for the Calder. There's so many contenders for the Calder right now. It's insane. It's not like no one's running away with it right now. But Michael Bunting, he's been very good throughout the whole season for Toronto. From Vancouver, now the whole Vancouver situation that I've been saying other teams have, well, Vancouver obviously has the Vancouver situation, the Vancouver problem in Vancouver. They don't have much rookies. And in this case, they have one that you probably hoped would be playing a little bit better, and that's Vasily Podkolzin, who is actually their best rookie on their team right now. Vasily Podkolzin in 42 games has 7 goals, 3 assists for 10 points. He was a very early draft pick. I don't know what year it was exactly. I want to say 2019, maybe earlier, or maybe earlier than that. Yeah, but he was okay. I didn't think he would ever be amazing, but he's definitely been a little bit disappointing probably for you. But you never know. Next year he could come out and play better. But he's just not extremely noticeable or anything. But yeah, Vancouver fans, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this whole thing, and just tell me what you think about Podkolzin. Do you think he'll be better? Do you think he disappointed you a bit? Were you happy when they drafted him? Did you want someone else? Stuff like that. Just tell me in the comments. But moving on to Vegas. Vegas is a good team with like no options. So I had to go with a 25-year-old center in Adam Brooks, who's only played 11 games. But in those 11 games, he has 2 goals, 1 assist for 3 points. And all I have written down for notes that I like to mention is no options, because I don't know much about Adam Brooks. I don't know much. He has a few points. He is there. He's contended, and all the other players I looked at did not. So he was like, I think he was literally the only player I could choose. I'm like, well, I don't know anything about him. And I probably should have looked into it a little bit, but still, I don't know. He's not played a lot. So is there really a need to? Is there a need? He's not even in their main lineup. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But from Washington, a player who I think I expected a little more from, and that's Connor Mcmichael. Connor Mcmichael in 41 games has 6 goals, 8 assists for 14 points. And that's actually not bad. I expected a little bit more from him, considering his production, but honestly, you can't really be mad with that. I had him in my top 6 or 7 for Calder before the season in predictions. But yeah, it hasn't been bad at all. Don't get me wrong. I still think he has more to give offensively. He got a couple assists in his last game, so maybe he'll heat up a bit. But no, I still think he's going to be a good player, and he might have been a little disappointing. You tell me what you guys' expectations were for him, but he's been fine. He's been fine. From Winnipeg, ending this video off, Winnipeg, a team with lacking options, but I went with centerman Cole Perfetti. Cole Perfetti in 10 and 11 games only has 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points. After watching him in the World Juniors, I was like, he was amazing. He played great. He was so noticeable, getting assists left and right. And I honestly thought he'd be able to do more offensively. But again, he's only 20. There's a lot of time. But Cole Perfetti, he's just had a very small sample size in the NHL, and I still think he will eventually be a very great player. But as for right now, he might be disappointing a little bit. But yeah, so that caps off the video of talking about one rookie from every single NHL team, or the best rookie from every NHL team, which is what I tried to do. But teams like Vegas and Seattle and Pittsburgh made that pretty difficult for me. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching. If you're still here, you're like an absolute trooper of a guy. So I am going to go and edit this now, and then hopefully it'll be out by tomorrow. So if their stats are behind 1 game, that's why. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.